So yeah, the next game that we have is Scotland, Georgia, and Darragh's repping the Georgians. He loves an old Georgia.
I love an old
Georgia
Scot
game
as well, but I do love the Georgians.
Scotland, to their credit and probably detriment in the World Cup year, did go out to Georgia and give them some games in the warm up. And
they played twice home and away against Georgia, which is great, and then they're playing another game against them, which I just think
it's great. Georgia need more games against top tier oppositions. That's exactly what they need. Yeah. And especially now, considering their tournament has been called off, the nation thing, Rugby Europe. So like Georgia are really living for this.
They're blessed to be in it, which is fantastic. Although it's the fact that after they entered them into the competition, they flipped the pools around to give them they moved them to Fiji's group to give them games against Ireland, Wales, and England.
Yes,
it was a bit cruel.
It was a bit cruel. It remains cruelty to Georgia remains a thing that happens throughout the rugby world, and this is no different. Apart from Scotland, who seem to be giving them as many ins as they possibly can. So yeah, this is going to be taking place at Murrayfield on Friday at 7:30 kickoff our time. And it's going to be ref by Alexandra Ruiz.
Yes, who we're not huge
fan. Actually, it was the same critique I have of other refs earlier. He is a mute ref, and it really wrecks my head. He doesn't say hands off, doesn't say no, just waits for something and then blows his whistle.
There's too much that's open to interpretation in the rugby rules, where you're almost missing a bit of common sense reffing and a bit of sympathetic reffing, where you get some guys who are very good at it, but absolutely, like when there's a situation where a guy has his hands on the ball and he thinks he's okay, just the courteous thing to do, which you'll see plenty of refs do, is say no, you're not good there, man, you can't touch that ball. 90% of the time they go, okay, sorry,
you're part of the tackle, release, play on, all of that stuff,
you're part of the tackle, all of that communication is so vital. And then you have some refs like Mr. Ruiz who just look at it and then blow their whistle.
Yeah.
And then that's
it kills the game.
It's so tough to play then.
Yeah. It leaves doubt. Like there's nothing worse than when no verbals from the ref at all, and then a massive breakdown or a maul, whistle goes, and both sets of players eagerly look up at the ref, not really with a clue as to what's happening.
Refs need to give players a chance not to give away the penalty. Yes. Obviously, like foul play aside, that's something you just react to when you see it. But generally speaking, like roll away, get out of there. You're not good there. Stay on your feet. All that.
The classic nudge. No.
Yeah, exactly.
All of that stuff is vital.
Give them a chance. It allows to stop the game.
Yeah, it allows the game to flow rather than let it turn into a penalty fest. But with all that said about poor Mr. Ruiz, he's not the only guilty party. But that is just something I would cite as a potential kind of dampener on this otherwise great game.
We're going to look at it now from the perspective of both teams. So we'll do a Scottish preview first, and then we'll look at it from the point of view of the Georgians, and hopefully we'll have that time stamped in for you, so you can skip if you're interested in the Georgian preview or the Scottish preview. We'll let you have that. But we're going to start with Scotland.
Yes.
Who named their squad as well this afternoon.
They did.
It's they're in a decent place squad wise. They have proper, like, I'm looking at this team and they have proper depth and heft in the tight five. For the first time I think in a long time.
It's true.
Rory Sutherland at Loosehead was one of the finds of the Six Nations. He was magnificent. He's
made Ireland look like mugs at scrum time.
He out-scrummed Tyg Furlong and then out-scrummed Kyle Sinclair. Back-to-back games. I mean, Scotland, in terms of their macro picture and where they are, they started off. It was ugly when it started off. They had Finn Russell leave the squad after a fight with Gregor Townsend. This is all after losing in the pool. And then you'd Finn Russell leaving the squad. You'd Stuart Hogg made captain, and then Stuart Hogg comes up with two, like in games against Ireland and England where they're competing, they're right on the edge of the game, and then he turfs the ball over the line in Ireland against Ireland to tie the game. And I think towards the end of it as well. An appalling mistake from your captain and potentially now European Player of the Year, Stuart Hogg.
Yes, that is bizarre nomination, but
that was a bad mistake from him. Obviously, then no Finn Russell. They lose that game by 7 points. They go into the next game, which is a completely soaking game in the Lashins Rain in Murrayfield. Super tight. Nobody's getting any tries. And then the breaking of the back of the game is England put one of their trademark attacking kicks in, and Hogg fails to deal with it. drops it over his own line. Downringer gives a try away then and there,
Yeah.
but they rule that he's carried it back over and he's just grounded it, and now it's an England scrum 5 from which they score the try that breaks the back of the game.
Yeah.
So really, but for those 2 errors, they're right in there with Ireland and England.
It's true.
And I think in terms of the physicality in the tight areas, they've never competed better.
Yeah, that's where they've improved.
yeah.
To be honest, a lot of credit has to go to Richard Cockrell and Edinburgh for upping their game in that area and bullying Glasgow a lot into getting their act together in the physicality a little bit as well. Like it had been a long-standing thing. Like under Gregor and before him as well, Vern Cotter, Scotland had tried to be the identity as the quick team in the Six Nations.
Yeah.
Obviously a very ambitious thing to do, and when you have a player like Finn Russell, you can afford to do it. But it was kind of at the expense of some of the tight forward play. Some of them were a little bit loose.
Yeah.
Certainly in the scrum, they weren't a force to be reckoned with, and they were bullied often. Whereas now the balance looks a bit better, and they have brought in guys like Keble and Sutherland, Nell and Fagerson.
Keble and Sutherland in behind. Nell is missing this week, but they've got Fagerson, and in behind him, I just remind myself of the name, but he's a class player, Simon Bergen. Sorry,
Yes.
very solid scrummer. Simon Bergen is. So they got Ollie Keble and him to come on, and McAnally as well. Fraser Brown is now captain of the side, so they have 2 test level, very quality, able to compete with the best front rows in there.
Yeah.
At second row, they have an
They have
embarrassment
options,
of Ripchins.
options at second row.
Yeah.
You have Toulis, you have Greys, both kinds.
Yes, two Greys. You've got Toulis, you've got Gilchrist.
Yeah.
In terms of who's starting this week, I believe it is
Toulis is in there, I know.
Yes, Toulis and Scott Cummings, who's another guy who's in there. They're also missing Sam Skinner, who's playing the Premiership final. Exeter man. So they have
tight 5 options. It's a hefty Scotland, and that used to be their identity. They used to be, before any of this throw the ball around, before Finn Russell was even on the scene and they were a Dan Parks team. They used to be kind of scrappy 10-man rugby, very physical, very combative. Murrayfield was a horrible place to go. It was often a very ugly game, but they were bitty and made it difficult in the tight. And they've kind of blended those 2 identities well. You've only the 2 clubs in Scotland, which is a bit of a disadvantage for them as far as player pool. But they've kind of discovered and kind of held their identities, and they're contrasting and kind of complementary. You have the hard-nosed Cockrell's Edinburgh, who are there like providing that grit and making sure that they're not a soft Scotland, which they have been guilty of being. And then you have Glasgow on the 4G pitch, which is necessary, because otherwise it would be a washout every other day up in Kingston. But it means that you can play some running rugby and get some backs play going. So they're making the most of those resources, and it's actually paying some good fruit. It's good to see quite a strong Scotland squad here.
And the back row as well, huge quality in there. Jamie Ritchie was one of the players of the Six Nations going into this break. Excellent number 6. He was their standout, and he's vice captain now as reward. Hamish Watson, obviously all class on his day, has been struggling for form a little bit, but he's got other guys coming in behind him. Nick Haining, obviously Cornell Dupria, who's on the bench this week, Matt Fagerson, Blade Thompson, and even Magnus Bradbury, who's injured at the moment, is going to come back into that squad. So like they've gone with Richie, Hamish Watson and Fagerson, and they've actually gone with a 6-2 split on the bench, such as the Georgian challenge. And it is a great challenge for this pack, and it's also a great challenge for the Georgian pack, as we'll talk about, because there's quality there. Because they got Rob Hardy and Nick Haining and Cornell Dupria to come on, as well as a full front row. So they've got 6 forwards on the bench, and I suspect this is going to be a game about the packs.
It probably will. But then, that being said, like, Scotland will still keep their identity as the team that does like to move, and they will recognise that they're up against Georgia, who are a big physical team, and they have guys like Duan van der Merwe making his debut on the wing. You obviously have Darcy Graham, who's electric on the other wing as well. So they will be trying to move the ball and put those guys into space and just run those Georgians round a bit. And then once you run those Georgians round a bit, then they're a little softer in those contacts, and then you can get some scrum attacks.
They played Finn Russell in those games, but he really did do a number on the Georgian defence, and that's certainly going to be an area that Scotland will look at. But I also think they'll be looking to test their forward pack.
They will, because we complimented all of those guys. We listed those scrummaging props that they now have. There's kind of no better test than the Georgians, who are a team all about the scrum. So it'll be a good little litmus test for Scotland as they get ready for their final Six Nations game next week. but also for this tournament coming up as well. Just kind of kick the rust off, same as anyone else, and give themselves a proper test against a really good and probably game Georgian squad.
Yeah, the back line for Scotland, Ali Price at scrum half, Adam Hastings, those are the incumbents. Obviously Finn Russell's just on the bench for now. They've brought in James Lang from Quins at inside centre to partner Chris Harris.
That'll be interesting. New dynamic, yeah.
Definitely, yeah, they've been struggling really to settle on those centres. I feel like on their best team, if he's fit, Sam Johnson's still the guy for that shirt, but it's definitely a chance for Lang to put a stamp on it.
Yeah.
And then a lethal back three, well, certainly lethal wingers, Duhan van der Merwe and Darcy Graham, with Blair Kinghorn filling in for the missing hog, obviously.
Obviously contesting the Premiership final as well. But definitely potential to move that ball around with those guys. Chris Harris has been in great form for them as well since grabbing that 13 jersey. No room for Hugh Jones, interestingly enough. They still haven't quite figured out what to do with him.
Yeah, he's playing at 15 for Glasgow. I thought he might come in because Kinghorn's form has been so sporadic. But
and plus, I thought they might want to run them around, and Hugh Jones is definitely a quicker option than Kinghorn from 15. But well,
it remains to be seen how it'll go for them. But in terms of the big picture, after that rough start, after that tough time with Finn Russell, it was reminding me. I mean, we had been sort of saying for a long time that Scotland were like Eddie O'Sullivan's Ireland, and that they were building that way. Back in that era where they had finally discovered the capacity to attack, and they moved the ball around and they looked very exciting for a little while, and then all of a sudden they're threatening the best sides in the world, and they're beating England, and they're damn near beating the All Blacks, and they're beating South Africa, and it's extremely exciting. And then it sort of tapers off, and then a disastrous World Cup ensues where they don't get out of their pool. Their coach, with still a little bit of good credit in the bank, gets to stay on, and then a disaster ensues in the following Six Nations, and he gets fired. And it looked to be so on course for that, but actually they managed to scramble it together towards the latter end. They got a good win against Italy where they didn't concede a point. They looked physical. They were unlucky, frankly, not to get anything out of those Ireland and England games. And then they beat France in Murrayfield. I mean, red cards notwithstanding, I think even before the red card they looked the better team, and they caused France problems up front. Yeah,
for sure. So there's lots of positives for this Scotland side, despite the last 12 months not really going their way, but definitely a lot of positives and a lot of new things to be excited about. And then just in terms of this game, it'll be nice to see them take to Murrayfield again and hopefully kind of hit the ground running and string some passes together.
It's a lovely betting in, because the Georgians obviously are going to be highly motivated to go out and deliver as good a performance as they can, given their situation. But it's a great test at scrum time for Rory Sutherland and for Xander Fagerson. That's going to be massive, and then I think it's going to be a nice test for the sharpness of their attack. Can they face a pack that's brutal and get it outside them and move them around, and ultimately get the tries towards the latter end of the game that put it to bed? Can they deal with the tier 2 Georgian side the way that a proper big tier 1 side would expect to at home?
That's the question for them, and as well as giving minutes to key men, that'll be their main goal for sure.
And they also need to keep Georgia. Like, we'll talk about Georgia's picture now in a moment, but in terms of Georgia's picture, they're looking to sort of lay siege to your line and spend 20 minutes up in your 22.
Not dissimilar to what Exeter do.
They need to kick sharply and not make silly errors and not give Ruiz a chance to pin them and allow Georgia to make that picture. So they also just need, if they're rusty, there is capacity for this to be a frustrating afternoon or evening for them. So they have to play smart, they have to play in the right areas of the field, and they have to make Georgia do the bulk of the work in terms of exiting.
Make Georgia exit is one thing. Don't give them exits, be that through penalties at midfield scrums or just general penalties in the middle of the field. They need to minimise Georgia's ins into their 22 and put them on the back foot, and then surely the game should be theirs if they manage to do that. But then we'll pivot on to Georgia as well, because Georgia, obviously, we haven't seen them since the beginning of March. Yes, they have been in quarantine, same as most others. So it'll be a great thing to see. They did have a rough time of it in 2019.
They did.
They the World Cup pool didn't play out for them. They got absolutely Fiji'd, but they did manage to paint their picture against little Uruguay and absolutely deflate the Los Teros after their big bandwagon.
They were a worthy part of that big pool, and they're always a worthy part of Tier 2 rugby. They paint a very, very interesting picture. Their people are extremely passionate about the game, which I love.
It's the national game. There's only it's actually a national sport.
I'm always wishing great success and good things on Georgia, and we will talk about sort of where they need to work on and how they need to build that success and how likely it is that they could pull off an upset here against Scotland. But first of all, we have actually got their team.
Yeah.
So I may as well rattle through that. It's an interesting one. They've got Nariashvili, the incumbent loosehead, in there. They've got excuse the pronunciations, I'll do my best, by the way. Bregvadze at hooker, Kaulashvili at tight head, Sheishvili and Kurdikashvili in at lock. I don't know much about those locks, and I think that lock is an area, and we'll get into it, but like their back row and their front row can be so effective. I think lock is an area that they could really improve. So definitely looking for something out of those guys, something special, because that's to complete the pack. I think they do need dynamic locks, and locks who are excellent at line out time.
Yes.
And yeah, those true enforcers have they've at times looked a little passenger-y in this Georgian team.
Sometimes that's true, for sure.
Although their pack, generally speaking, can compete with the best of them.
They're still hefty.
The back row is very exciting. Girogadze at 6, Saganadze at 7, and Beka Gorgadze at 8, and even on the bench, Kiliashvili, he was brilliant last season as well.
Yeah.
So those guys
they have an embarrassment of riches in the front, in the forwards. Really, sometimes they are so physical.
It's a very hefty, very dynamic pack, which is quite exciting. They've stuck with Lobzanidze at 9, Absendadze on the bench, Oh no, sorry, Absendadze at 10 in with them, and Aprasidze on the bench covering 9 as well. They've gone with that sort of a stalwart at 12, Sharakadze, with Tapladze, who I don't know too much about. I haven't really seen him in a Georgian.
No.
I'm not sure if he's on debut, but I haven't seen him in a Georgian.
It would be nice
jersey.
to see him go well, because they definitely need a bit more razzle dazzle in the backs. But speaking of razzle dazzle, it's good to see Soso at 15.
Absolutely, and Todwa I thought had a good World Cup from 11 as well.
Right,
he's a nice runner on the ball as well. So yeah, that's the side that they've gone with. Obviously, they have some players to come in on the bench as well. But yeah, in terms of what we're hoping to expect to see from them, I'm excited first and foremost by Absendadze. I mean, a couple of weeks into the Pro De, he was actually, I think it's Perpignan he's playing for. He was the best goal kicking percentage of anyone in the in that division. I'm not sure if he still holds that record. Aprasidze, obviously, the young man can drive a nice tempo. Lobzanidze at 9 can definitely kick the ball well. But in terms of Absendadze, a young man who actually, piece of trivia, used to play for our club, Terranure College. He played briefly in the club team.
Yes, you were saying,
which was gas before he got
whisked
away
to play in a
World Cup. And now, so he has a Dublin connection, which is cool. But it's I'm delighted to see him going so well. I'm delighted to see him playing good standard professional rugby in the Pro De, which is always great to see lots of these tier 2 guys playing pro rugby. And I think he's a massive sort of do or die for the Georgians, in terms of can they expand their game a little bit with a good quality 10 who can both kick and pass and move the ball. As you say, the Georgians had a rough time of it in 2019. They, in the World Cup, they did paint their picture against Uruguay, you're right in saying, but frankly, like against first Fiji, blew them away.
They did.
Blew them away.
Absolutely unlocked them.
But even in the games against like Wales and Australia, they weren't at the same. They were never close.
Nowhere near the pitch. No, it's and there were a few reasons for that. It's like part of it is just the standard they're playing at. Like one of the things we were saying in terms of what Scotland need to do is force them to exit. But their exit play in Rugby Europe had been usually to kind of flick it wide to one of their flankers on the wing, who would just break a tackle and march them up. Whereas they weren't able to get away with that. Very often their passing wasn't slick enough to get them from one side of the field to the other before they were swallowed up against those tier 1 defences. So it'd be nice to see them put a little bit more subtlety on the ball. Obviously Soso at 15 is a lovely kind of player, kind of counterintuitive as to what you'd expect from a Georgian player. He's more of a footballer than a physical guy, but they need to see a little bit more of that, a bit more deception, a bit more variation, probably a bit more crispness to their hands. So this new 13 will be exciting to see him go well. But then also, like you'd cited here, how are they going to cope with these defences?
There's 3 key areas that I'm looking at. If Georgia want to make the step up from perpetual Rugby Europe winners to, obviously they've been advocating Six Nations rugby for as long as there's been time, and it looks like they're going to get a game against Italy, even if they do lose this Autumn Nations Cup. If they finish bottom of that group, they'll have a game against the bottom of the other group, which I suspect will be Italy, certainly on form. That's what you'd expect. So it looks like they're going to get that game that they so crave, where last time out they lost. But in terms of actually making the step up to that level where they compete with the Six Nations teams, there's 3 areas that I really think they need to improve. And the first you just touched on there, which is the defence. We talked about it with Italy, and we need to talk about it with Georgia, because for me, Georgia's issues on D are almost more egregious than Italy's, because Italy, you know, you look at them and they look a little slight outside of their back row. But Georgia don't. I mean, Georgia are well able to dominate the collision zone on the ball.
Against tier 1 sides.
They gave Wales a real scare in an autumn series in the last World Cup cycle. They gave them a proper scare, and they did it by just holding the ball. And Wales and all their back row turnovers were never able to get near the thing. They were so frustrated. So Georgia are absolutely physically able to cope with the biggest sides and use their bodies well.
Themselves with the ball. They impose themselves very nicely with the ball. They know what they're doing with the ball, especially in the 22.
Yeah, but consistently now they have failed to do so at the top level on defence. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, they're getting shocked by the speed, the speed increase, like in terms of...
Well, we've seen Argentina do them a few times in years gone by, where they just run them ragged.
Argentina's a brutal matchup for Georgia. They're too good.
Yes, indeed.
But in terms of even just competing with this Scotland team, getting out of the line and defending with a bit of dynamism and good technique is a massive work on. A massive work on. And I don't think it can be overstated. Their head coach has come in, and Maisashvili, I believe, was their defence coach.
Yes.
And they were in sort of an awkward limbo time for long enough anyway, heading into this cycle, because Milton Haig left and they didn't replace him for a long time. It didn't look like there was anybody to take the job, or perhaps there wasn't any money to find someone to take the job.
Like all unions are suffering, even tier 1 unions are suffering during this COVID thing, and like obviously Georgia a bit shy of resources.
Their league hasn't been played as well. It's another factor. Like guys like Soso Matishvili haven't played. The Pro 2 guys have, obviously, but he hasn't. Anybody who's been playing in the Russian league or in the Georgian domestic league, it's all been cancelled since COVID. So there's those issues as well. But generally speaking, just if they had been working on one thing, I would love to see them working on line speed and technical tackling, because they definitely have the heft to use their bodies better than they're using them at the moment, and to really punish teams for going softly into a contact.
Or being casual with their passing game. Like, it would be nice to see them impose themselves without the ball, because they are big enough to do it. It's definitely a good work on for them, and it would be lovely to see them, and it's a necessary step if they're going to take their game to the next level, for sure.
The second key area that I would look at in terms of improvement, I mean, Georgia have very much an Exeter-esque model.
They do.
So it has to
get themselves to the 22, and then once they're in the 22, pick and go.
Be ruthless. And Exeter must be a sign of encouragement for them in terms of their clinicality and the way they go about finishing teams in the 22. It is very Georgian-esque. It's similar to what Georgia do at the lower level in Rugby Europe.
Yes.
But it's doubtless a source of inspiration for them. So the trick, as it is with Exeter, so it is with Georgia, the trick has to be to increase the number of ways that they create that picture. So how do you get down into the Exeter 22? Well, there's a few ways. We talk about defence. Defensive pressure is massive. Force teams to make errors, force teams to kick you back the ball. That's massive. But also your own kicking game. I think this is somewhere where Georgia have really lacked.
Yes.
I mean, we saw at the World Cup.
It's just a box kick. It was a Lobzanidze box kick. They couldn't drop Lobzanidze because he's the only one who can box kick, and it was their only exit.
His box kicks weren't good.
No.
His box kicks weren't good, and it was again an example of a tier 2 team not
getting
really
away with it against their level. Like, he could have done that all the live long day in Rugby Europe.
They didn't really do it in Rugby Europe, frankly. Like but then in this level, you know, they can't really bust out from their own half. They don't want to risk that, and so what they resolve to do is a sort of pale imitation of what all the other teams are doing. Only you're not going to be able to do it as well, and they're going to be well able for it. So in terms of that, they need to have a clever kicking game, and this is where young man Tato Absendadze comes in. And certainly I would love to see him take some of the responsibility, perhaps even Soso, as you say, but moving the ball away from the point of contact and pinning the ball in behind. You know, you got Duhan van der Merwe in there. He's a guy on debut. He's never played Test rugby. Pro, get that ball in
Blair
behind
Kinghorn has been in sketchy form as well. You can test him out as well.
But you're not testing them with an aimless kick into the sky. All you're doing is inviting them into the game. You've got to angle your kicks and get deep into the 22. And kicking is a huge part of rugby. It's not a part of Lelo, the game they play, but it is a part of rugby. And it's something the Georgians are going to have to get their head around.
For sure.
And then the third thing, I touched on it with the locks, but I think that the Georgians, again, with their body shape and with their physicality, they need to have a line-out maul.
Yeah.
A much better line-out for starters and a much better line-out maul, because it's something that they've been missing. And
yes,
I think that
it's true. They're more inclined to do like what Exeter do, tap and go. And Exeter, again, the analogies are around, because Exeter had a few line-outs nicked on them in that Champions Cup final last week. It's like it's a work on for both of them. They're very similar teams. They do need to like branch out, get the line-out set, get the drive set, and just get into that technical aspect. It's a very simple thing to do. It's something you can drill even in a COVID, in an isolated environment. It'll be lovely to see them hit the ground running with a good aggressive line-out maul or something. That would be ideal. Yeah. But those are three pretty key work-ons for this Georgia team based on what we saw last time out at the World Cup. Obviously, they're at a disadvantage. They're away from home. They're against a team that's ranked higher than them. They haven't played any rugby. So all of this, those are caveats attached. Like what do you expect to see out of this?
Well, what I will say is that in terms of competing with the tier 1 sides, it is different in a November series in sort of a fallow year post World Cup and with COVID and everything else. Like we've seen in the brief opportunities that Georgia got, like that game against Wales, we have seen moments where they really have been able to impose themselves, and these sort of out of sorts tier 1 sides, not quite at fever pitch, not quite expecting what the Georgians have brought, can be shocked by it. And that is always there for them. This is a November year. This is a November. Scotland haven't played together in 7 months either.
It's true.
They're putting together a team. Their focus is one eye on the they're really eyeing up that Autumn Nations Cup because the group has fallen so favourably for them.
Yeah.
So they have almost 2 eyes on that. This is a prep game for them, and it's a friendly game. You could absolutely catch them. And from a Georgian point of view, if you arrive, we talked about the pitch in the context of the All Black game, but if you can arrive, at your very physical pitch and your very best, understanding that it's going to be tough for you in those 3 games in the Nations Cup, but this could be a game that you might be able to take. You might be able to shock the Scots if you can edge that pack battle against a very good pack, but if you can use your physicality to get on top of them, Scotland could stutter and they could look out of sorts, and that's where you're into the game comes. And obviously a result would be a massive one for Georgia.
Kind of shake the foundations of the rugby world a bit.
Yeah, so
I think it's a little.
There's every incentive. Every incentive.
It'd be great to see them hit the ground running and shock the Scots. That being said, predictions. What do you think is going to happen?
It's very tough, isn't it? I mean, it's hard to make. It's hard to make an educated prediction of any sort. You know, what does Murrayfield look like? Is Murrayfield going to rock up fat, having just been eating for the whole time that he hasn't been playing, or are they going to be bulling and ready to go like you'd hope? This is a huge opportunity for them. This whole series, they're playing 5 games now against tier 1.
How much faith do you have in them? Are they going to turn up in shape and ready to
go? No, they weren't great at the last World Cup. What I will say is actually since Murrayfield has come in as coach, it did look negative. It looked decidedly negative, in fact. But to see it just news this week that 2 Ulstermen, Neil Doak and David Humphreys, have come in and joined their coaching squad, and I think Neil Doak is permanent attack coach now.
That's
attack
great.
And backs coach.
Yeah,
there's a limit to how much work you can do in a week, no question. But that's sort of another nice little
encouraging recruitment for sure.
Yeah, so
it means that their eyes are on it. They're trying to improve, and they hopefully in some areas they will.
If they're at the right pitch, crucially as well on the other side of the ball defensively. Yeah. If you can put in a big performance defensively and not allow Scotland to have easy ins, then absolutely they can make a scrap of it. And if it's a scrap, it could go either way. My fear is that they won't be quite at the pitch defensively, and they won't be quite ready for what Scotland bring in terms of the speed and sharpness of the ball, which is it's hard to be ready for that. But I hope that they rock up with passion and intensity and strength and give Scotland a right game. In terms of prediction, I can't make one. I just don't know. It's hard to know. Well, you can say, you can be the villain. Go on.
I'll say Scotland by 10 to 15 in a scrappy game.
Alright, I predict Georgia will win.
Yay! Alright, with that, we will move on then.
Thank you very much for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to give it a like, share with your friends, and leave a comment down below as well. We really do want to hear your thoughts.